Welcome back to the Imaginary Gallery. It's TJ, your host. We're in the Narcissist Bag of Tricks. Character traits of these Cluster B creatures, which apply to the psychopath, the sociopath, whatever label. The point is, they're all toxic. Once again, referencing Robert D. Hare's book, Without Conscience, The Disturbing World of the Psychopaths Among Us. Next on the list, lack of empathy. Dr. Hare says many of the characteristics that are displayed in the Cluster B creatures, especially their egocentricity, lack of remorse, shallow emotions, and deceitfulness, are closely associated with a profound lack of empathy. Dr. Hare defines a lack of empathy as the inability to construct a mental and emotional facsimile of another person. These creatures seem unable to get into the skin of another person or walk in the shoes of another person, except in a purely intellectual sense. You see, the feelings of other people are of no concern to these creatures. Hare also states that in some respects they're also a lot like emotionless androids that you see in science fiction movies that are unable to imagine what real humans actually experience. One rapist, which scored high on the psychopathy checklist, commented that he found it hard to empathize with his victims.
They're frightened, right?
He asked.
But you see, I don't really understand it. I've been scared myself, and it wasn't unpleasant.
These creatures view people as little more than objects to be used for their own gratification. They target the weak and the vulnerable, and they mock these people rather than pity them. Their favorite types of targets. There is no such thing in the psychopathic universe as the merely weak, wrote psychologist Robert Reber. Whoever is weak is also a sucker. That is, someone who demands to be exploited.
Oh, terrible. Very unfortunate,
Snapped a young inmate when told of the death of a boy that he had been stabbing during a gang clash.
Don't try to soften me up with that crap. Little Puke got what he deserved, and I cannot worry about it, as you can see.
He gestured towards the interrogating officers. I've got my own problems here, he said. In order to survive both physically and psychologically, some non-psychopathic individuals develop a degree of insensitivity to the feelings and plight of specific groups of people. For example, doctors who are too empathic towards their patients would soon become emotionally overwhelmed, and their effectiveness of being a doctor would be greatly reduced for them. For them, insensitivity is circumscribed, confined to a specific target group. Similarly, soldiers, terrorists, gang members may be trained very effectively, as our history has shown us over and over again, to view the enemy as an object without an inner life. Cluster B creature crazies, however, display a general lack of empathy. They are indifferent to the rights and suffering of family members and strangers alike. If they do maintain ties with their spouses or kids, it's only because they see their family members as possessions, much like a stereo, a cell phone, or an automobile. Indeed, it's difficult to avoid the conclusion that some of these people are more concerned with the inner workings of their cars than with the inner workings of their so-called loved ones. One of Dr. Hare's subjects allowed her boyfriend to do pedophilia with her 5-year-old daughter because he wore her out. She said, I wasn't ready for more sex that night. The woman found it difficult to understand why the authorities took her child into custody.
She belongs to me.
She said.
Her welfare is my business.
She didn't protest very much, however. Certainly not as much as she did when her car got impounded during the custody hearing for non-payment of traffic tickets. Because these creatures have an inability to appreciate the feelings of others, some of them are capable of behavior that regular people not only find to be horrific, but also baffling. For example, they can torture and mutilate their victims with about the same sense of concern that we might feel on Thanksgiving Day if we're carving a turkey for the dinner. However, except in movies and books, very few psychopaths commit crimes of this sort. Their callousness typically emerges in less dramatic, though still devastating, ways. Parasitically bleeding other people drive their possession, savings and dignity, aggressively doing and taking whatever it is they want, shamefully neglecting the physical and emotional welfare of their families, engaging in an unending series of casual, impersonal, and trivial sexual relationships, and so on. To expand upon what Dr. Hare says, in the beginning of this section, he states that the cluster B creature seems unable to get into the skin or walk in the shoes of others. I think it's true on one level as far as how much they actually care about what they're doing. I also have picked up on instances when I think the other person did have the ability to switch shoes when they're doing their evil. Like if you tell them a story about how someone you were involved with was so terrible they had the nerve to do this horrible thing, such as tell me they'll be right back in a public place, and you don't hear from the partner and found them kissing some janitor in a closet nude. If you told that to a cluster B creature, not knowing what they were, and just explained the story, they can pick up the words and the way you're saying things. I don't know if it's actual empathy, but it's something I've heard somebody call cold empathy, where they can put themselves in that situation. Many times that's what they'll use for their wicked, evil revenge that's not even justified or logical anywhere other than in their head. But they can get into the other person's skin enough to know what's going to really hurt them. So if that was the story, it sounds goofy and crazy, but it wouldn't be unheard of for this cluster B creature to organize or set up a very similar, if not the same, type of circumstance when it's decided you've learned too much about it and you need to be discarded. They may pull a similar stunt. Like a person that did have empathy did that. If you said to them, how could you? A janitor, when we were out in the restaurant, when that's what happened with my last person, how could you do that? That's exactly what they would want from you because they know it works. A regular person with empathy would never dream of doing such a thing, and if they did by chance and didn't realize it, then they might actually break down and say, oh my goodness, that's right, that's what you went through. Oh, I did this to you too. Oh, but that won't happen with a cluster B creature. And it's true, they love to prey upon the weak and the vulnerable because they're cowards. It's like they're the lion out in the woods, and the lion might want to eat a bird, but it's too lazy to run out and chase birds and hide and try to catch them. So when it spots a little wounded bird out there hopping along the grass, that's an easy target. So that would be what you might resemble to the cluster B creature if, for example, you were just divorced, or you just found out your partner was dating candy cantaloupes behind your back, or any other number of things. Because they live in a fantasy world, they wouldn't think about it like, oh, I'm a coward, I'm chasing after the wounded bird, when there are plenty of lions and tigers who catch the birds in flight when they're in the air. They won't be thinking that way. They will demonstrate their lack of empathy, justifying by it like, well, that bird deserved it. If it's going to run around here with its leg broken, then with me around, then it's asking to be eaten. Just like your narcopath monster may not tell you, but think to itself, this person deserved it. They're weak. Remember, Dr. Hare is dealing mainly with inmates and crimes, which doesn't always apply to a relationship setting, so I thought I'd share a few real examples that I've experienced. The creature I was with for over a decade, it was uncovered that it was seeing some other guy after quite a while of gaslighting when I'd say things like, something's going on with you two. Oh, you're crazy. Oh, you're paranoid. Which that right there is indicating a lack of empathy, because if it's a person who really cares and knew that I was sensitive about such things, then there's no way it would be taunting like this, especially when the truth came out that it was doing exactly what I thought from the beginning when I suspected things. But their lack of empathy indicates they're not putting themselves in your shoes to see how it might hurt you to do this and then change their behavior. No. They're going to do it because they don't have the empathy or the remorse or guilt or any of it, which we just covered in the last video. This particular person once discovered, and I was prepared to leave the home. I heard it say some kind of things like,
relationships always have this kind of thing go on,
where someone cheated with some other person, as if to minimize what was done. Like I should just say, oh, really? Okay. Oh, you've stopped it? Okay, we'll start over. Wrong. I wasn't that retarded. It did try to minimize, which again, doesn't understand if you're sensitive to that kind of thing. It just treats it like you should just be able to get over it. And I thought, you're one to be saying that. Plus the fact that I had begun this situation by welcoming this person in when it was transitioning from partner number whoever to me, which I didn't know for sure that's what it was doing, but I suspected. after I took it in, and then later houses were purchased in its name, it would say, oh, you have 3 days to get out of this house. And I would think, that's my thanks for starting this whole thing by taking you in, and now this is the way it is. It's just, again, no empathy, because an empathetic person would not even think to do such a thing. They would be thinking, oh, I wouldn't want that done to me, so I'm not going to do it. And another example of this lack of empathy would come from its new pursuits, because it really can't expect to win any points towards a new target if the target's to ask, oh, is that your ex? What happened? You think it's going to say,
oh, well, I picked up another boy because I wanted to, and kicked this one out of the house, and...
They won't say any of that. The story will be changed to something like, oh, it's over because he cheated. And that makes it save face, makes it look like the hero, and it makes you, the ex-target, look like the bad guy. And that's how they want it. And again, a person with empathy wouldn't live with themselves if they were to paint another person in such an unrealistic and untruthful way just to score points with the new target. One last example demonstrating a lack of empathy. I'm kind of a forgiving person, which is probably why I was targeted. A few years later, I actually would swallow my pride and meet it out for like a dinner somewhere at an Indian restaurant, or visit with some friends over drinks that I work with and introduced it to. There was a point where I was at a restaurant with the creature and wanted to make it clear that I'm not approving and accepting of everything that happened, but this was many years later after other horrifying things happened in between. Without rehashing the whole story, it was pretty tragic when you look at the whole thing. I said something like, you ruined my life, which a person with empathy would crack or break probably if they did what it did and, let's just say, didn't realize what they were doing. But that doesn't apply here. And so the reaction I got to that was, oh, your life isn't ruined. Quit saying things like that. Oh, stop this. Which clearly shows no empathy, because it could have taken things a different direction and said something like, oh, it was pretty bad, oh, I shouldn't have done that, oh, I want to make it up to you. No, none of that happens. And if I were to bring up a specific thing like, I had a home for 10 plus years and then all of a sudden I'm given a few days to find a new one, it would not want to hear that and try to shove it away, or it would do a fake, I'm sorry, which is not genuine. These people have no empathy. These people are disordered. There's no order there, no equality. So if there's one in your life, escape quietly. Don't say anything, because you'll just be yanked into the mess.
I am the Narcopath.
And you need to listen to me. I'm gonna tell you how it is.
Well, a particular memory I'm not too fond of happened with you. I thought I could keep getting away with my antics forever, but eventually you got wise. You knew I wouldn't stop dating other people. Dating meaning screwing. Plus I wasn't too happy when you came to me and pretty much said you'd give up. You didn't want to lose me. You still said, look, if I was going to continue dating other people, well then you were going to date other people. And of course I had strong objections to that. That's not allowed. Only the Narcopath is allowed to date other people. How dare you? And I told you I didn't want that. And you said some smart aleck thing about me dating others. Well, honey, I am allowed. You were not. So clearly it wasn't going to work out with us, because you weren't willing to play by the rules. You have to honor my rules or you're out.
Since I am the Narcopath,
I might as well reveal some secrets to you. Since I'm giving confessions, I might as well go the whole 9 yards.
when we were dating, a lot of strange things seemed to happen with you.
You seem to be losing your mind at times. Well, I'm here to tell you that's because of me. You see, I've been studying some of TJ's books, and evidently what I was doing to you was called gaslighting. I feel so intelligent, I learned a new word. Evidently, gaslighting means, well, it comes from some kind of movie, which TJ actually has. I saw it in his DVD collection. I watched some of it, and quite frankly couldn't stand most of it because the person stole my ideas. For example, when I left your side at that restaurant, and that cute waiter was talking to me for what seemed to be an extended period of time. I had you convinced that that wasn't me. That must have been somebody else. I wasn't talking to any waiter. You've got problems. You're seeing things. And you were the one who made such a big deal about lying, and I was so convincing you actually bought it and went to the doctor. Many times, like they stole from the movie, I'd given you a really expensive piece of jewelry that of course I'd stolen, but told you I'd paid for. It was worth over $1,000. You put it in your trusty little place that you keep things in when you weren't looking. I took it out and took it elsewhere. And then one day said, oh, this would be a really nice night for that piece of jewelry. Why don't you get it out, honey? And you went for it, and guess what? As planned, it wasn't there. And I watched you running around the house with all of your antics trying to find it and saying, oh, I can't believe I lost it. Oh, and I brought up some other things I'd done similar things about, too, and said, honey, I really think you're losing your mind. Remember last time you'd misplaced that $100 I gave you? That had disappeared? And I was like, honey, I don't want to be rude, but I think you're losing your mind. Maybe you should seek some kind of help. And you did. You did. I got a creature here. Come here, sweetie. What kind of creature is this I found running around this house? What is this? What are you, creature? What are you? Are you a rat or a rodent? What are you? What are you doing in this house? Hero? Hero?
Hero?
This is my baby. It came out of my Virginia. Hero? Being the Narcopath gives me some extra privileges. Mainly, being able to lie whenever I want, while telling you that I'm honest. It works every time. And I just told you I never did it, as I lied again and again and again. Well, honey, that's your problem. You shouldn't have listened to me.